nerds, buckle in. This is going to be a ride. So, I think their time travel is broken. I think. But to figure it out, okay, so first, this is what I think, as best as I understand it, time travel, how time travel works, the way Bruce and the Sorcerer Supreme explained it. So, the timeline that she drew out when they were sitting on the roof. So this is the series of events that took place in the Marvel Cinematic Universe to this given point. These are all of the things that happened. This is our main timeline. What Bruce says is that you cannot go to a point in this line and change events that happen in this line because they already happened. What he says is that this is established. Rather, with what the Sorcerer Supreme kind of adds, is that if you jump to this point, you can change a new timeline. So, for instance, if they jump back and kill Thanos as a baby, they've created a branch timeline that never has Thanos and goes in a totally new direction. But the timeline that they existed in and the one that they would jump back to isn't affected by that because it's a new timeline. Because the second they jump back, what they do, and I think this is the issue of how she explained it, is she made it look like a branch. But really, that's not quite accurate. What they do is they jump back and start a new line right there. So when they all jump back to New York, there's a new timeline starting right there. And that timeline, if they take the time stone, will start to go wildly out of direction because all of a sudden things will get much, much worse. And that's why she says they can't take it. What Bruce suggests is, what if we went back and we gave it back? So instead of it being a branch that he just gets rid of, because they can't get rid of that branch, he jumps to the exact moment that the whole group jumps into New York, so that it doesn't create a second new timeline, because if he jumps back a second before, it's another new timeline. If he jumps back a second after, it's another new timeline off of this. And this one is still screwed. So he's saying they jump back the exact same moment that they jumped there the first time, so it only creates one new branch. And 1 second after Bruce jumps off the roof with the time stone, Cap shows up to return it. And so maybe it did this mildly, like it barely affected their timeline. And then that new timeline straightens out and matches the one that they existed. But it doesn't meet up. You can't stay in this timeline and meet up with their present moment because it's a new timeline. Bruce says you can't change their past, which means you're in a multiverse, like you end up in a new timeline reality. If that's the case, if each moment they jump back to created an off branch, and they Cap, when he returned all the stones, jumped back to the exact same moment everyone jumped off to the first time to get the stones, and put them back the second after they took them. So once Stark and Cap left the base in New Jersey and left with the Tesseract, the second after they leave, Cap jumps back to the moment they got there and waits. And so this whole time that they're there, Cap is somewhere in the distance waiting. And then as soon as they leave, he just puts it back. And so it jogs, but then it's straight again. And because he was there for 2 minutes, so it didn't change that much. But each time anybody jumps anywhere in time, a new timeline is created. And if they're only there for a minute and only do one thing, that timeline is pretty much matches their main time, the same timeline that they came from. Most of those events will take place because not much has changed. But the longer they have to stay there to put it back, the more it's a little bit different before they go again. Which leads me to the point of, if Bruce and the Sorcerer Supreme were right, and this is how it works, in that you cannot affect your past, you can only go to your past and you can take things and bring them to your present. So they can go back there and take time stones and give them to their present, but instead of it affecting their main timeline and saying that happened in their past, what it does is it creates a new timeline where all of a sudden a stone is missing. And so that's why the Sorcerer Supreme said, like, if you take this now, like, you're good and you'll bring it to your timeline and they'll fix it, but you'll totally screw our timeline because it's not going to come back to us. You're not jumping to our future, you're jumping to your future. So if that's the case, you can't jump into your own actual past. You can't jump into this and write it and get to your own actual present. Which, if that's true, it is impossible for Cap to have jumped back and written this out to show up as an old man. Because he can't jump into the timeline. The second you jump back, it's a new timeline. So he couldn't have written to their current present. He either jumped back and created a new timeline and just like made sure he didn't like hardly change anything so that timeline rode the same, and once he got super old, jumped back to the present as an old dude. Or Bruce and the Sorcerer Supreme were wrong about how time works, and you can jump to your own past and affect your own future. But if that's the case, the only way that works is if there's a whole, like, 8 movies where Cap went into space when he jumped back to New York so that he could find Loki when he disappeared with the Tesseract. Because they either created a new timeline that involved Loki getting the Tesseract back and who knows what else. And if they created that, I'm assuming Cap tried to jump to that moment and fix that, because if he didn't, he left a whole timeline that's totally screwed in a different direction. Or that was in their actual timeline. And if that happened in their actual timeline and Cap didn't go back and fix it when he returned everything, there is no way in their present nothing else would have changed when all of a sudden now Loki didn't get caught, didn't get taken back to Asgard, they didn't get the Tesseract. Like, either he fixed it. Either way, morally, I feel like he had to fix that. Because either he created a timeline that was just screwed, that he just left, and didn't fix what he screwed up, or he had to go fix it because otherwise it would have drastically altered the main timeline that was his present timeline that everybody waiting, Bruce and Falcon and everybody waiting when they sent him back, something would have shifted in their reality the second he jumped back if he didn't fix that. Because all of a sudden, what would have happened is their reality would have had a past that included Loki getting away with the stone, with the Tesseract, and who knows what else. So, as best I can tell, Cap can't. The only way that Cap can be Old Man Cap in his primary timeline is if Bruce and the Sorcerer Supreme were wrong, and this isn't how time travel works, or he managed to write out a timeline, a branch timeline, and then decide to jump back once he got old to the present that he had left, but he somehow was able to jump back not on the quantum platform that they built. He could just jump back to a bench. And I don't know, like, it has to be one of those things, I think, right?